Hi everyone, welcome. Today we are now on a slightly different platform streaming into Facebook, and that is StreamYard. So do allow StreamYard to access your profile if you'd like to comment, because it means then we see your name, and that is always really important. So with that little bit out of the way, I would like to welcome today's guest, Catherine Dunphy from The Magic of Music. And as a lot of you who know me would know, music is really important and a very important part of the mental health toolkit. So, Catherine, you are very welcome to today's show on christening the platform now today of StreamYard out live. Mental health, music, I mean, where do you begin? I mean, I know a lot about it, and you do, obviously, it's why you're here, but there'll be a lot of people watching and listening maybe on replay later on that mightn't understand how important it can be.
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me on the show, first of all. And this is my first time using StreamYard as well. So, new for all of us. The whole thing about music and mental health, though, is not new, but it is something that is not being used to the extent that it could be used. And that's a terrible shame. And I think this stems for a lot of people from the point of what is it? What is music? Or what is it to be musical? Okay, everybody knows what music is, but what is it to be musical? And it stops people from accessing music to the extent that they could in order to make their lives and their mental health better. It's a great passion of mine to bring music to children from a very young age, to let them explore their own musicality so that they don't get to adulthood like so many of our generation thinking music is for the musicians, music is for the extremely talented, music is for the singers, and I am just a bystander who's lucky enough to be able to listen to it. That's the biggest misconception, and that's why we don't use it. And
one of the things I'd actually add onto that is that people think, well, it's only for those who have money, because it's not always music and having fun with the instruments and learning. It's not always about lessons and structure and exams and all of that side of it. Not for everybody.
Yeah. No, yeah, I totally agree with that as well, because, like oftentimes I'd be doing a live stream of a lesson, into people's kitchens, and they don't have, and I'm going to be doing that later on this week, actually, because we're going to be doing our library workshops this year online. So rather than the children coming in and me giving them out percussion instruments or any other kind of thing, they're going to have to be creative. And this is actually going to be really good, because they're going to have to go to their kitchen drawers, get a pot and a pan and a spoon and or a glass, and bang along with it, and people will realize that you can create sound from anything at all in the environment, and that's the most important thing. And that doesn't even touch on the fact that we are all vocally able to make a sound, and the idea that it has to be perfect pitch or in tune. I mean, what's that? The point is, make a sound, make your sound, sing your sound, and that's good enough. That's your own unique sound. People have to get out of the idea that that it, like I said, you needed to have singing lessons, music for lessons, be grade 5 in the violin. I mean, that's wonderful, but that's not all of it. That's a very small kind of a aspect of music, and I'm delighted to be able to speak to you about that, because the more it's said, the better, because people, especially at this point in time, people need something. And actually, the other interesting thing, Barbara, is that if you've noticed, and I'm sure everybody has, people have turned to music in the last few months to get them through the COVID, to release the isolation, to release the kind of just frustration, the fear of the virus, the grief of for people. We had Dear Italy, there's Dear Ireland, there's, and it's all about the music. And look at all the people. TikTok was meant to be for like the 13-year-olds.
Yeah, I know.
You're mad.
I know, there's mothers and grannies on it now, and they're doing their movements and they're doing their music and whatnot, and it has just taken it by storm.
I love it. I mean, that's brilliant, because people who never would have had the confidence to have got on screen or done something like that, only like after they've done rehearsals or they're in a show, or, they're just getting on the camera and they're realizing that it's good for them. It makes people smile. And even if you're the type of person who doesn't want to personally do that, to watch it and enjoy it and laugh and join in from the comfort of your home, that's your musicality. Everything about that is musical. So it needs to be defined in a much broader way, and so that people will then use it, so to make their mental health a nicer place to be in.
And the other thing as well, I would say on that, because as you were saying, you're going to be doing your online lessons and tuition or whatever this week is, our whole body is an instrument. Exactly. And I think what sometimes when I found myself from working with children, they go, but I don't have any instruments. And I said, but you are one.
Yes.
And let's see what we can do with our bodies. And like in my mind, I'm always thinking of the children, because to me, it gives them a great outlet as they're starting, because, not every child is a soccer or a Gaelic or, that way inclined into sports and athletics or whatever. They need something, and to discover that they can actually do something with their own body, and, the clapping, and that's where it starts as babies. I mean, yourself, that's where it starts.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole kind of thing on body percussion and using the various sounds, and that can be an awful lot of fun. And as quite rightly you've said, anyone can do it, and they're joining in on a different level. And you can access, there's so many programs on the internet now where you can access a backbeat, so you can have a backbeat going, and then get your kids to click along with it, clap their legs, clap their hands. Yeah, I mean, all of that is releasing the musicality inside yourself. And it's not just for children, it's all the way up. We have to learn to use what I called in my TEDx talk our superpowers. It is our superpower, but it's a superpower that we don't use. We're given this stuff to get through life. We haven't been dumped down on this earth with no powers in order to deal with the inevitable stresses and hurts and pace of life and all the things that life brings up for us, or even the happy things. We've been given tools, and one of the biggest ones is our music. So
and and in fact, because once you start that, actually those happy endorphins then really do start to kick in. And I find, and you can see that light in someone's eyes. They go, oh yeah, I did it.
Exactly. And that's why I do think that recently the whole thing of people just getting on camera and singing along, or people who were, these closet at home guitar players who would never, you'd never even know they're musical. They're getting on the camera now and they're singing songs. I'm like, yay, that's cool. Because that gives all these other people, I suppose, permission to get on and sing, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's about enjoying it, and that's something, the endorphins. I'm really glad you mentioned that, because people don't actually realize the science behind music. And oftentimes I get told, when I'm sure the same with yourself, when you're trying to bring a music program into schools and they're trying to justify spending the money on bringing a music instructor in, and they're like, but there's no proof that music is brings any benefit. There's loads of proof that music brings benefit. There's scientific experiments have been done by putting music on, and the endorphin release in the person's body after they've listened to music, or put different pieces of music beside a glass of water, and the changes in the molecules, and we're made of water. So it stands to reason that's what's happening in our body. So, that science needs to be more highlighted, and more music needs to be used in the therapeutic sort of a way for people.
So what would you say then for somebody now at home? You see, I grew up in a house, as I suppose, well, I would say you did as well, but of a generation where nearly every house had a musical instrument. In the main, it was a piano. Kind of in the 70s and 80s, there would have been a piano in most houses. Now, whether it was used or not was a completely different thing. But you don't see that as much anymore. So for those parents out there now that are thinking, well, I'd love them to do a bit of music, but I can't afford the lessons, and I can't do this and I can't do that. So how would you say now at home, what would you do with somebody like that to say, well, how do I start? What do I do?
Yeah, well, that's a really good point as well. And what I will start with is that musicality is based on honing in your auditory skills. So the listening is the most important thing. And actually, there's plenty of children who go and do lessons and they never have honed in their auditory skills or skills of listening. And that's whether you have any kind of impairment as well. Because I spoke to a lovely. One of our TEDx speakers was deaf, Joanne Chester. She's amazing. And I was like, the whole deaf community were coming. I was like, really, I need, to know that this will be relevant for them as well in terms of the listening and stuff like that. The vibration is their listening. So this is for everybody, by the way. If your child has special needs, I'm not excluding you. This is for you as well. So the listening, the feeling of the vibrations, the picking out of the tones, the textures, just even challenging your child when the radio is on. Is that fast or is that slow? Is that happy? Is that sad? Those kind of things, they're really, really important. And that's a great starting place. Then you use the body percussion, like you say, to accompany it. So, encouraging to feel the beat. That's so important. So if you can develop those sort of skills in your children, my God, you're doing a fabulous job. That's where I start when I'm working with children. We start with listening. Because we're generally lazy listeners, adults, children, we don't listen. And this affects your ability to really hear the texture and timbre of music all around you. You miss so much that the composer had in their mind that they wanted you to feel out of not listening. And this is where I always like to challenge people. I say to them, okay, what's your favorite song or favorite piece of music? Or name one of them anyway. And then they tell me and I go, okay, name all the instruments in that piece of music that you've listened to 1,000,000 times and that you love so much. And you can see them going, there's guitar, there's and they're struggling. Yet they've listened to that piece of music 20 times, 20 million times, but they didn't really listen. So that's a great place to start with your children.
Yeah, and I think because even in conversation, most people will listen to answer. They're waiting to answer as opposed to listening to hear what the other person is saying. So the same thing would be with the piece of music. They're listening to the whole of it as opposed to, oh, well, what's in there and what instruments do I hear? So they're not dissect. They're just listening to it to sing along with it.
Exactly. And there's so much more. It's the level. Yeah. So don't be put off by, I don't have money for a musical instrument, because the thing about it is that if you can start at that point of developing the auditory skills, you could then maybe add something in musical in terms of an instrument by going every year. Lidl and Aldi have musical instrument sets and they're really inexpensive. I think they're 10, 15 euros at the most, and there's about 5 instruments in it. And every year you could build that. And then you're developing then their ability to hit along, whether that's with the Potter Pan or the maraca from Aldi. And that gives your child the opportunity that when they're presented in the future, which they probably will be in a school environment or themselves when they get a bit older with an instrument, the foundation is there. Yeah. The musicality has been already developed. And when they do pick up what you call a formal instrument, they'll find that they're able to do it much, much quicker than the child who had lessons and was never encouraged to listen properly.
And the other thing is that I found myself is that as they developed through, and when they got into school or whatever, if they had that bit of fun, I know my eldest, okay, so I'm a musician, my kids are musicians and that, but 26 years ago, my goodness, when I had my first, we had, I tell you what we had, it was a really old toy Casio keyboard.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, do you remember them? And it wasn't a big one, it was only a small one. And I'd plug it in and I would hear, obviously, all he did was he just kept pressing the buttons just to hear. This is when he's a toddler crawling, just to hear the sounds.
Yeah.
And that was it. Nothing else. It was just left to him. And then they developed their own thing. But what you said about the listening is brilliant, because I'm picturing a child standing with their feet, because you feel it first through your feet. So your body is going to respond.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's the feeling it, and that's where, people with any kind of, special needs or difficulties or whatever, auditory difficulties, it's your body feels it. It's not necessarily just your ears, it's everything. And then the encouragement to move to whatever it is you feel. And then after that, then develop the sense of rhythm and beat. And then your child will naturally levitate towards what it is they like. And then and this is another point actually that I'd like to make in terms of musicality and stuff like that. Forcing your child to learn an instrument that they don't like isn't the way forward. They're going to learn that piano. They might hate the piano. That might jar on their heads. So let your child, like, if they don't match with an instrument, don't make them do it.
I could have a whole other conversation with you on that now. Absolutely. Yes. And I have seen it so many times, like if, you cannot force them. If it's not to be, it's not that they won't like music. It's just they won't like it on that particular instrument.
Exactly. I've had so many children, because I started off my whole career in secondary, and so they'd be doing their junior cert practical exams and this piano, and they hated it, and they were very good, but they hated it. And I'd say to the parents, will you say to the teacher, just for a year, do no grades, let them play a song that they love from the charts, their own music, and let them, re-engage with the instrument in a different sort of a way. And actually what happened was, in a lot of cases, the teachers didn't want to go off piste and teach things other than the grades, because they weren't comfortable with that. And it's a pity. Once again, putting musicality into this box of classical music or grades or the Royal Academy music, they're wonderful. I'm not taking away from them, but there's so much more. There's so much more. Let your child go in, like your child on the Casio keyboard. Let them go in and bang the piano and have fun.
And that was it. I tell you, they were and the bottle would be dripping on it and everything. I mean, there was the best 20 quid or whatever it was at the time on this little Casio keyboard, But the other thing as well, I was just going to ask Esther, how are we doing out there? Because I haven't clicked on, this is all new to me today. Oh, there we go. Who doesn't love, Helena says, who doesn't love a good bop when your favorite song comes on? Yes, absolutely. And you see, this is the thing. Oh, Sasha, thank you. Both looking good on StreamYard. The picture is really clear. So thank you. I used to be a leader in a play school, and kids loved a good musical morning. Yeah, we'd get our music box out and their eyes lit up. And that's it, because I think what it is, it releases I don't know what it is, but it triggers something in children. It's kind of like, I'm out of the strict structure of whatever it is I'm doing. And music, no more than other art forms as well, just releases this expression.
Yes, yeah. And then when they're together and they're doing that, there's a community feel as well. So that's another aspect that, you can't underestimate, is when children get whatever it is, a box of musical instruments, and they're bashing along to a song or whatever, they're doing it together. And then they get better. The more you do it with them, the more their rhythm develops. And then there's a sense of, togetherness, community. And I see it in adult groups as well, when they come back from lunchtime and they're bombarded with drums and they didn't realize that they were going to do music. And they're like, oh no, we're not musical. And then they get into it.
Yeah.
And they're like surprised at themselves. But it's about team building. It builds a sense of teamwork, of, so many important things. And then teachers would tell you that, children who might not have a good concentration span, that this really helps them in the lesson following their music lesson to concentrate, because they've already released, stuff from inside them, and now their brain is ready to work in a different
It's ready to focus. Yeah. And that is another angle. It is a great break in between all that structure.
Mm-hmm.
All that the Irish, the English, the maths, and whatever else it is they're doing. It is that great, I call it the switch off, where they can do that. But the other thing is especially, and I know I'm focusing at the moment on smallies, and that is for dexterity and what it does physically for them as well as mentally.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it develops, it's all these things of coordination, you know, like I said, keeping in time, but, you know, being even able to hold an instrument. Actually, people underestimate that. You know, often I give a child an instrument and then I look around and I realize that, oh, sugar, you know, they're having difficulty even holding the triangle. And so the more that they're exposed to doing an action and a sound, it's really good. It passes on to, they're able to bounce a ball. Like that's actually one of the things I do in my lessons is I bring in bouncy balls. So here's the thing for parents at home now. That's not an instrument. Get a basketball and get them to bounce the basketball in time to the music. That's great for everything around. And you're not requiring a musical instrument, but you are being musical, you know. So there's another good idea. And then there's another group called Stomp, actually.
Yeah, brilliant.
Fabulous. And they don't use any regular musical instruments. They purposely look around a room or a scrapyard and they pick up things that have cool sounds and they make rhythm. So I do that with the kids in the class. They get out the bin and they're banging the bin and they're like, cool, Catherine, we're allowed to do this. This is great. Normally I'd be in trouble for this. And it's great fun. So that's worth looking at for parents at home. Look up Stomp Out Loud and have a look at the different. Your kid will be enthralled with them. Really.
Yeah, and maybe let them do it outside, Mammy.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you don't want them doing it inside, but it is absolutely brilliant. But then, if we move on to the adults now, because there'll be adults there watching, probably going, "Oh, I wish I'd learned, or I wish I'd done this, and I wish I'd done that." What do you say?
There's so much to say, really, you know. I'd say, first of all, it's if you really, really want to learn an instrument, it's never too late.
Yes, I completely agree.
Just as an adult, you have to be a bit kinder to yourself, though, because we expect that sound is going to be amazing on the first lesson. It's not. And so, you know, whereas children go through the lessons and they expect it not to sound really good until they get to a point of where it does, adults can be very like, after 3 lessons, I'm not good at this. So if you're going to take it up, take time, take patience, and realize it's a process. So that would be my first thing. If you want to take up an instrument. The second thing is, you know, I wish I'd done that. Just do explore the other elements of musicality, which is, you know, what songs do you like? Have you got playlists on Spotify that you can turn to when you need, especially when we're talking about well-being and stuff like that? You know, have you got a playlist for when you're sad? Have you got a playlist for when you want to dance around the kitchen? Have you got a playlist for, you know, when you're angry and you want to release? I'd like people to consciously go and pick the music that resonates with them, create their own playlist and use it when you need it. And that's being musical, you know. We don't use it enough, and we get sad and we're like, oh, what'll I play? It's too late then. You know, consciously pick out the stuff that resonates with you and have it ready to go so that you can use it in your life. That's the other thing I would say. So, yeah. You know.
I think as well, one other thing I was thinking of there was there'd be quite a lot of, well, I know they haven't started back yet or whatever, and we're still only coming down on easing of restrictions, but that there'd be a lot of possibly community groups that will have these workshops going in them, or even a local choir, just to be part of something, because that does so much for you, you know. And you actually don't have to be a soloist or the world's best singer, but to be part of something like that, because I find the voice, as you said earlier on, we have our voice, you know, just using it can actually stir so much.
Yeah, no, it's your expression.
Yeah.
You know, your special sound. It's like how you speak. I mean, nobody really speaks the same. Everybody has their own sound. So it's the same with your voice. And so many people, adults especially, who've been scarred by someone telling them at some point in time that they're a non-singer, you know, you play the tambourine in the back there or mime the words. That's the worst thing. It's terrible, really, you know. Like I would tell you to break out of that our whole thing of what is in tune, that's an archaic sort of measurement that came from a long, long time ago. You know, your tune is your tune. Actually, another thing in relation to that will be chanting. That's a really good thing to get into, because you don't even have to be in tune. You could go along to a group who are going to chant and you just come out with your sound, and get right deep down into your stomach and create your sound. And that's a really good release as well of your musicality. But yeah, the local choir, go along, don't be afraid. Sing out as loud as you can, and I really do hope community groups will bring music in to bring an element of healing, because people are going to need it now.
Absolutely, more than ever. And actually, I was just thinking, as you were saying there, the chanting, because that even relates back to what you were saying earlier on as regards to the vibrations.
Yes.
And how the vibrations work, with our bodies. Because that physical vibration from the sound that you create through a chant, they can be very powerful. Like they can trigger quite a lot.
Yeah, very much so, because as you do it more and more, you breathe in deeper, and of course we all know the breath is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Doing it in a musical way, while some people aren't good at meditation, like that's kind of just not for them. Oh, me too. I'm just a bit too hyper. So. So chanting for me is a much easier way to delve into the spiritual, like, even if you're not spiritual in the traditional sense, the way we all like our music, we all have spiritualism in our body, whether we use it or not. But that's a way in. Two superpowers that we have is to chant in, and you go deeper into your stomach. Your stomach is your place of emotion. And so it's without consciously thinking, I'm now going to release the stress inside myself. It just does it for you.
It does it. That's it. Exactly. It does. It just triggers it for you. I mean, I know when it's funny for me, having been a performer, there were certain songs, and because of the pitch and the resonance in them and whatever, I'd actually have to stop myself from crying. Now, I could be singing in public. I could have been doing a wedding or whatever it was. But I'd find myself having to stop tears so that I could actually get through the piece. And some more power, but that was for me as a performer. But even listening, there are some pieces of music I listen to and I just go, I can't listen to that now. I know I'm just going to burst into tears.
Yes, but then that's great to identify that song, because there might be another time where you need to burst into tears. And so this is about back to the Spotify or the iTunes.
Yeah.
Ready to go. So go, okay, I need to cry now, but I don't know how to release it. Put on the song.
Yeah, absolutely. And if for me now, it's generally a piece of classical music. I have to say, yeah. But how are we doing, Esther? How are things? My voice of Oz is in the background here. Music, it is. That's it exactly, Esther. Music, it is a universal language. And if there's one thing that can bring people from all walks of life, all creeds, all colours, doesn't matter what your background is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It is actually going to be music. Helena, I love going to hear my niece, who's an opera singer. That's right. No real clue of the words, but I can truly feel the emotion of it. And that's it. That's exactly what I was saying. There are some pieces of music you don't have to. It could be sung in Russian. Yeah, you don't, like my one that makes me cry, Song to the Moon.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's actually beautiful.
And just when you hear it, do I understand it? Mm-hmm. No.
Yeah.
No, not, do you know what I mean? I will get the translation, but because the language or whatever, but when a piece moves you, there's something about it. And as Helena says, you don't have to understand it there. It hits that spot.
Yeah, and there's so many pieces of music, but everybody has their own pieces of music that hit them differently, because we're all different, we're all unique. And I know that's a real cliche, but it's so true, but yet the common musicality, God, I love that music being the universal language, is that we can listen in harmony, and it might bring up a happiness in you and sadness in me and something else in somebody different, but it brings that togetherness, it brings a togetherness between people, and more than ever we need to be united together now, so get those song lists going, and
get the song lists going, get to your local community group choir, get the kids bashing their pots, and you will have Yeah, you will have a completely different atmosphere in the house.
Yeah.
So we have did Esther, because I'm still a bit lost on this today. Sorry, Catherine. We put
Okay.
up the links again to get in touch with Catherine across the screen. I think we did there. So hopefully everybody was able to grab that link, The Magic of Music Ireland. And I know you're on Instagram and
Yeah.
Twitter and Facebook as well.
Yeah.
So
there's
yeah.
lots of lessons, and like if you keep in contact with my link tree, if there's a workshop on or a course, I've got a teacher's course running, but the course is for everybody, go to the link tree and check it out, because I'm always updating it with new things, especially the library workshops being online. You don't even have to attend this year. So that's great, so yeah, I'd love to see all of you online, and everybody like getting in touch with their musicality.
Brilliant. Look, thank you. So as you obviously, as people could have guessed, yes, I could talk music all day. Thank you to everybody who tuned in, and for our first broadcast on StreamYard, I think not too bad at all. Yes, I'll be using it again. Sasha, thank you very much. And Esther, yeah, brilliant. So I shall see everybody on Thursday, same time, same place, using StreamYard, and I shall talk to you then. Cheerio for now. Bye.